Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. Today's podcast is entitled Reflection. And as usual, I'm going to start this podcast off with a quote. The visible success you achieve is the result of what you have done inside you. And that's a quote by Sunday Adelaja. Our external world is a reflection of our internal environment. I know that we've gone over that, tons of times in different podcasts, speaking about, our external world being a reflection of the emotions and the truths that we have inside ourselves that we've created since the day that we are born. And those things manifest themselves as our outwardly world. If your internal environment is chaotic and filled with doubt and a host of other emotions, I mean, you can cover the whole gambit from good to bad. That is what your external world would look like. Um, if you're going through things and you can't figure out what's going on, or maybe things aren't the way they used to, or people aren't reacting to you the way you want them to, we're very energy sensitive, and we can, just like when you have like your intuition or you feel something's off, or when you're like around somebody, you're like, something's not right about that person, or why bullies always go to certain people and pick on certain people. Is because we can detect energies or something about someone that might be a little bit off or different, and that's because we vibrate at a certain frequency. We put out certain things through our body language, like lack of confidence or being scared, and other people can pick up on that stuff. And it starts with our internal environment. And if we're not sure of ourselves, if we don't have a good foundation, if our like fundamentals about our life aren't set up correctly and stuff like that, it can lead into doubt, lack of confidence, fear, uncertainty, and that stuff manifests itself outside of us. So our outside world, however it may be, is an indication of what our inside world looks like. um there's some things you just can't control in life. We all know that. But there's a lot of things that we can control in life. And we're not taught that. Sometimes we seek it through religion or spirituality, and we get some type of understanding, but we're really not taught how to be masters of ourselves in school and in like traditional education. It's something that we have to seek on the side. We can only pretend for so long, but eventually the truth will manifest itself in one way or another. You could pretend to be, confident. You could pretend to be sure of yourself, but somehow, some way, the truth is going to present itself. The truth always comes out. The truth will always manifest itself. So instead of pretending, that we are this and we are that, let's try to, educate ourselves, discover who we really are, find out the truth about our internal environment, diagnose why it is the way it is, and then try to rebuild it, or just build it if it never existed, from that point moving forward. And by you can do it by yourself, but this is where when I talked about early in like my beginning podcast, like it's not a bad thing to go seek help, like a therapist, a mentor, a coach, somebody who's navigated through this aspect of life before and has successfully transitioned for, through it. Have has gone from an unfinished product to a better product, because we're never going to be finished, because we're all trying to be perfect, but that's the destination we'll never reach, anybody. But there are people out there who have done what you're trying to do, whatever it is. Like there's somebody out there that's already done it, or has accomplished some form of what you want to do. So you don't have to go through it alone. You don't have to depend solely on yourself in order to create this environment or develop your characteristics, or create this foundation that we talk so much about. Sometime life again hand you a bad hand, and you do have to go through life and kind of you know go out there and get the information by yourself. There might not be somebody in your life that sits you down and has a talk with you about this type of stuff, but there's always information out there. Supposedly we are the most technologically advanced society that has ever existed on the world. So, I mean, there's my podcast, there's Google, I mean, therapists, there's football coaches, all types of sport coaches, there's teachers, there's always a way to go out there and get it to go out there and talk to somebody who can teach you the right ways to do things and how to develop confidence and relieve yourself of self-doubt, how to get your internal environment situated so much so that it then reflects on your outside environment, and then your life starts to be fashioned in the way that you want it to be, and starts to be fashioned in a way that resembles more closely the way that it needs to be in order for you to accomplish your goals. There is nothing outside of yourself that can help you achieve stability that you desire. It all starts within. I know a lot of us start looking outside of ourselves in order to find that happiness. It might be through other people, it might be through, experiences, it might be through substances, but none of that stuff is going to help you to stabilize your internal environment. If you have trauma that you're dealing with, if you have doubt you're dealing with, lack of confidence, if you're dealing with fear or any of the host of emotions that the human experience is filled with, you need to deal with that. Instead of trying to find a way to maneuver around it, or to just not deal with it or face it altogether. You need to confront it. At times I know that can be scary, and at times I know that can be difficult, but in order to become a better person, in order to create stability in our inward life, which will then reflect in our outward lives, we have to deal with things. We have to hit them face on. If they're like, it's just like dominoes. Like when you flick that first domino, you have to hit the next domino in the sequence, and the next domino in the sequence. And facing that trauma or those issues that create a roadblock in your life, that might be the domino that you have to hit in order to get to your next level in life and get closer to your dreams and goals. So again, just this internal environment that we foster, whether it's in a good way or a bad way, we need to be stewards, of this internal environment. And it goes back to what we talked about, in previous podcasts, like our thoughts, the conversations we have with ourselves, the type of energy that we put out, our disposition in life, like if we're always negative or always positive, what we focus on. All of those things that we talk about, all of that comes full circle, and that creates our internal environment, our homeostasis. Not so much in a physical sense, but in a spiritual or like an ethical and just foundational sense. So currently I'm reading this book. It's called The Matrix in Philosophy. It's an older book, and it's composed of many different essays created by a host of authors. This was just a book that I picked up a year or so ago at a local bookshop, and it was just something. The cover popped out at me. I was like, okay, this looks pretty interesting. I always liked The Matrix. When I was younger, I thought it was an awesome movie, and I like philosophy as well. So I decided that this would be a good investment. It was only $2, so I was like, how bad could it be? If it's a bad book, oh well, it's $2. If it's a great book, this would be an awesome addition to my library. So, time passed. I had a lot of books that I had to read before it. So, I'm just now getting around to it here recently, and I'm starting to find that this book is awesome. This book is really, really awesome. It goes deep into a lot of aspects of the Matrix. This book takes a look at the Matrix as compared to a philosophical viewpoint, and addresses many questions and thought experiences. So it really takes a look at life, like, is the Matrix even plausible? Aspects of metaphors involved in the Matrix, like what different things mean, like mirrors and stuff that we'll talk about here shortly in the rest of the podcast. It just goes all in depth in the Matrix, different aspects of the Matrix, the Oracle, Neo, Morpheus, consciousness, just it's awesome. It's an awesome book. Maybe it's awesome again because I like philosophy. It might not be entertaining to someone who, doesn't like to dive that deep into different type of concepts and aspects about life, but I found this to be really enjoyable. And even though The Matrix is interesting, which it is an extremely interesting, it's an action-packed movie, it's a great movie, there are a lot of aspects we miss about the movie that could lead to deeper thought and meaning. And this goes with a lot of movies. A lot of movies have a lot of subliminal messages, a lot of meaning that we don't pay attention to or look at that, could be an important message. I don't believe in nothing being a coincidence or people just doing things to do things. Everything happens for a reason. These movie directors put things in certain places and put certain music on and, certain things that happen at certain times for a reason. Nothing just happens just to happen. They don't just go into the movie theater and just start creating a movie, or the movie set and start creating a movie and things randomly fall in place. They pick the actor they pick for a certain reason. They pick the music they pick for a certain reason. They have certain props. Everything happens for a certain reason. And a lot of times we get caught up in just the action or the suspensefulness or the excitement of the movie, and we miss some of the deeper meanings if it's not kind of just pushed in our face. If it's something that's kind of really subtle and it's just like an undertone of it, it might slip by us. And I'm not saying that's everybody. There's some people out there that go to the movies and they pick up things right away. But I'm just talking about the majority of us. Who goes to a movie to have a thought experience? They're just trying to go to the movie to have a good time. So the other day I was reading chapter 9, which was an essay written by, let me see. Well, I'll cover that a little bit later. But the other day I was reading chapter 9, which discusses the boy with the spoon analogy. And for y'all who haven't seen The Matrix, so in the first Matrix, Neo goes and sees the Oracle, which is like I don't want to say a fortune teller, but she's like, she can see things. She can see like the future. She can like tell things. And when Neo first goes in, there's people in the living room that are kind of just sitting there chilling. And there's a little boy who's dressed in what I think is like a Buddhist robe or something like that. And he has a spoon, and he's taking the spoon and he's making the spoon like bend all different type of ways. And Neo walks up to the kid, and the kid is like, Neo is like, how do you do that? Like, how do you make the spoon bend? And the boy replies, do not try to bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth. There is no spoon. The truth is there is no spoon. And, even when I was younger, that really, really hit me. Like, I don't understand why it hit me the way it did, but it was just something about, what that boy said and just that scene right there that just hit me. And when I was younger, and I couldn't figure out, like, I was like, what is he talking about? What's the deeper meaning behind this? And, I just couldn't figure out. It was something that kind of sat with me and was just annoying me, like, in the back of my mind. But as years went by, like, I kind of just, threw it away. You don't use it, you lose it. So I just threw it away. But here in recent years, like, I've been, doing research and looking at things, and I've ran across some Buddhist philosophies, like the Four Noble Truths and stuff like that, and other readings and stuff in my teaching or in my research. And this concept, this analogy rolls into those teachings. And I came across that exact saying and a motivational picture for you all who follow my Instagram. I just posted, this picture not too long ago of that little boy and a saying underneath it. And it's just all kind of come full circle. And I was like, wow, that's kind of weird. That quote, that moment, that scene in the movie impacted me so much when I was younger. And now that I'm older and I'm trying to find this journey for deeper truth and understanding and meaning, this quote comes back into my life. It comes full circle. Um, it's really awesome, actually, because again, nothing happens by, coincidence. So there's definitely a meaning behind this quote and a meaning behind, that experience. And basically, what I was able to discover that this quote means, in its most basic form, is that it's all in your head. And as soon as you understand that, you can figure out how things work and start bending the rules. So as soon as we figure out that, the world isn't stressing ourselves out, we're stressing ourselves out. It's like how I always say, in every circumstance that we face, we are the one constant. So if this person makes you mad, you're in that situation that has created this emotion of anger. And this emotion of anger started with you. You took offense with something that somebody else did to you, which you interpreted some type of way that made you feel anger. That person didn't make you angry. You made you angry. So once we realize how much power we have, how much of a choice we have to feel the emotions we feel, to feel confident, to feel defeated, to feel, just the whole spectrum of emotions that the human experience is filled with. Once we realize that we have power to choose what emotions we want to feel and at what time we want to feel those emotions, we can start to create a more stable internal environment as opposed to being reactionary. Like, oh, he made me mad, or she made me feel scared, or this situation creates a lack of confidence in me, or nothing outside of us can make us feel a certain type of way. It has to start within us. It has to start with us. So in this book, the author of this particular essay, his name is Michael Brannigan. That's who it is. Earlier I was jumping ahead of myself, but Michael Brannigan states that the scene in the movie is a reference to the Taoist belief, or Taoist or Buddhist teachings, in which the mirror reflection is a common metaphor. So in these teachings, when I was reading through the book, what he's talking about in particular is a story that Buddha was explaining to somebody else about a mirror. Like, look into a mirror, what do you see? And then he expounded on the truth behind, the mirror, the reflection, and stuff like that. I don't want to go into it too deep because, this is a very, very deep principle and deep teachings, and I don't want to butcher it, especially in my short podcast. But I would invite you to take a look into it, the Four Noble Truths, stuff like that. And it's very interesting. I'm not promoting, Buddhism or Taoist as like the religion to have or the religion to experience. I'm just saying it's good information, and it might be something that you might be able to, just add to the brain housing group, something more that you can just rely on, or a truth that you might identify as something that's relevant in your life. In this essay, the author states, a mirror simply reflects what is before it. And these teachings, referring to the Buddhist and Taoist teachings, urge us to be like a mirror, have a clear mind, which they called a mirror mind, and one that is uncluttered, free, and therefore empty. Just like the mirror, a mirror mind simply reflects what comes before it. It does not discriminate. Again, this talks about our thoughts. If you say, I'm scared of this, every time this happens in my life, I'm going to be scared, then your mind has that decision already made for it. I know we've discussed in earlier podcasts how we can make decisions and ethics in our lives so that when we come to crossroads, like, it's not a choice. We already know which way we're going to go because of our fundamentals and our foundations. Our mind tries to make those same shortcuts. So if you say, like, hey, I'm scared of heights, every time you get into a situation, you're going to be scared of heights, regardless of what it is, how stable you are, how safe you are, how secure you are. You're always going to be scared of heights. And that's because your mind is a mirror, and it reflects, your thoughts. It reflects your emotions. So if you're always angry, or a situation makes you angry, when you get in that situation, your mind is going to default to anger because that's what your preset is. That's what you create it as your default. So we need to be mindful, like we've discussed in the past, of the things that we think, the conversation we have with ourselves, like when we call ourselves stupid, or you're not good enough, or you're not pretty enough, or you're not strong enough. We're listening to that. Our subconscious is listening to that, and it's putting it out there in the universe so that that becomes the truth. We vibrate at a certain frequency, and that vibration attracts like attracts like. So you put that out there, it's going to bring that into your life, it's going to bring that into existence, and then that creates that environment that you don't want to live in, that you don't want to, that's not conducive to your success. So this is why it's so important. This is just another example of why it's so important to really focus on building a secure mental environment, a secure internal environment that's impenetrable from the outside, where you're sure of yourself, you're sure of what you're doing, you're positive you're going in the right direction, you read books to reinforce it, you listen to podcasts, you do research on Google, instead of watching things on YouTube or TV that are just mindless. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that. However you relax is how you decide to relax. But sometimes look into a book, maybe see what information is in there, just looking at something you've never thought about looking at before, and you might be pleasantly surprised. That's what happened with my experience when I was just reading through Taoist and Buddhist philosophy. The Buddhists are people who have always interested me. So I just wanted to see what they're about, and I was just doing a little research for my own personal knowledge, and then that's how I came across the Four Noble Truths. And it's good. It's good stuff. It's great stuff. So basically, this is where the law of attraction, knowing your vibration, the 7 hermetic principles, all of that stuff that we've taught or we've been discussing come into effect. Just like I've said over several different podcasts, everything is related. There are no isolated incidences. And, the mental environment is related to your subconscious. Your subconscious is a reflection of, your mental state. It goes back and forth, and then the web just grows bigger and bigger and bigger. There's nothing that just sits outside of the web. There may be things central to the web, and there may be things further out of the web. But all in all, everything is created. And the way that we make these connections to one another, to things that may seemingly seem like they're not related, is through research, through education, and through knowing ourselves. A lot of people are trying to play this game called life, and we don't even know the rules. Imagine you trying to play basketball or football or some other sport, and you're going into the sport, you want to have fun, you want to have a good time, but you can't play the sport because every time you do something, you're breaking the rule. So we have to stop every time and reset, or allow the team to kick an extra point or something like that because of your lack of knowledge. So, like, for any of you athletes out there, like, you can't play a sport and not know the rules. Like, I play football, basketball, track. A lot of people don't think there are rules to track. There are rules to track. You got to know the rules in order to be successful. And the athletes that are the most successful, other than skill, also have knowledge of the game. So that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast. I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to boast. I'm not trying to make it look like my life is perfect and I'm not going through these things myself and learning myself. I'm just trying to kind of generate a rule book, like what my grandfather did for me. And I'm not saying these are the rules or this podcast is the guide for life, but it's just something to think about. It's just something out there that's being positive, promoting positivity, that's other than what we see on the news and negativity and the lack of knowledge that's being circulated, because it seems that things are vastly different from when I was in school, and from the people who were being positive in my life and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to come out here and create an environment where we can come together, we can learn from one another. I'd be happy to learn from you as well. I'm sure there's information out there I don't know that somebody else has that I would like to obtain. And we could just feed off one another, create an environment for learning and education. And in the process, we can all become better individuals. Because at the end of the day, life is a journey and not a destination.